For reasons which will appear obvious shortly, I would like to keep my identity a secret. I work in a high school, and I've worked there for about 15 years. Again, I won't say which high school. One recent afternoon, about 15 minutes after all the classes had finished, I was passing by the homeroom class. I noticed 2 female students stood opposite one another, deep in conversation. They spoke using whispered voices. I know it's not right to eavesdrop on the students' conversations, but there was something about their body language which made me stop and stand by the door to listen in. Something seemed strange. To my recollection, this is how their conversation went. How about jumping? Nah, people would see, maybe intervene. How about hanging? Yeah, I think we can do that. That's definitely an option. What about, jumping in front of a train? We can't do that. Think of the security cameras. Well, that conversation made my blood run cold. It was mind-boggling. 2 young students with their lives ahead of them talking about suicide in such a carefree manner. It shook me up pretty bad. I'm a pretty hot-blooded guy, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I had let this slide. I would worry about those girls, so I went straight into the classroom to confront those 2. Hey, you 2, I boomed at them. Stop talking like that, it's stupid. I let my emotions get the better of me. Suicide is never the answer, don't be ridiculous. If you're having troubles, talk to someone. Talk to me. They looked at me in silence, both of them just staring. They had a really cold gaze. I was deeply concerned for them. I wondered if I was getting through to them or not. Then, one of them said, "We're not talking about suicide. We're talking about killing a teacher and making it look like suicide." What? Then the 2 girls left the classroom, laughing, a mischievous laugh. I couldn't move. I was so shocked by what I heard. Those 2 aren't in my class, and now that I have had time to think about it, I don't think I've seen those 2 at school before. I haven't seen them since, and this only happened in September this year. Nothing strange has happened yet, but it's making me paranoid. It's a weird and disturbing experience I don't think I'll ever be able to forget. When I was at school, there was this old guy we called Mr. Hyokori. Not too far from our school, on the way home, there was this vacant lot, and us elementary school students would go there and play after school. The entrance to the vacant lot faced the road, but other than that, it was surrounded by apartment blocks and houses. There were fences around our little playground, aka the vacant lot. And in one of the homes lived Mr. Hyokori, one that faced our playground. Back then, we would play baseball or tag there. It was great. This old guy, Mr. Hyokori, would pop his head up and watch us, hence earning him the name Hyokori-san. Hyokori in Japanese means to pop up from a hiding place, or to peek, or peep at someone. Sometimes without anyone noticing him pop up, someone would spot him and quietly spread the word that he was watching. That's why he's called Hyokori-san, or Mr. Pop-Up in English. I mean, we never called him that to his face, or teased him or anything, and he didn't do anything to us either. We all thought that he just enjoyed watching us play baseball. He was strange looking though. He had these sunken eyes. They were really gloomy. To me, it seemed like his eyes, eyebrows, and beneath his eyes formed a kind of figure of 8. I swear as well, we could never place the expression on his face. It looked like he was perpetually between laughing and crying, between deep concern, yet on the verge of giddy laughter. A new kid would come along to play with us in our makeshift playground, and they would always remark that Mr. Pop-Up was creepy, but eventually they'd get used to him, just as we had. It came with the territory, and I guess feeling his eyes on us now and then was a small price to pay to play uninterrupted. When the sun began to set, we would all head home. He'd be gone by then too. I know it's really weird that we were so okay with it, and that Mr. Pop-Up was kind of part of our lives. I went into the next grade at school, and we eventually grew out of playing tag and baseball in that vacant lot. But when I was in the second year of high school, I passed by that lot again for the first time in a few years. It looked a lot smaller than I remembered, I guess it's because I'm a lot bigger now. Memories of fun summer days of baseball with old friends came flooding back to me. I felt a bit nostalgic and a bit sad, I guess, as well. Better days. I completely forgot about Mr. Popup. I was staring at the fences, which were now covered in moss, and I can't describe it, but I felt very odd, like a kind of anxiety fell over me. What was this, I wondered. I felt like something was out of place, something was bugging me. I couldn't put my finger on it. Then, I realized, that's what it is. The wall. It must be about 2 meters tall. I guess I never noticed as a child since everything seemed big at that age. If you're going to peep over this wall, you need to be 2 meters tall at least, or be on some sort of platform. And then I remembered Mr. Popup, and I shuddered. The next day at high school, I told some of my friends that I used to kick about with on that vacant lot what I had discovered, and we began to talk about Mr. Popup again. The wall was too high to see over. I was curious, though. I wanted to see what kind of life he was living back there, as if it was a dare. I didn't want to go by myself, though, so I dared 3 friends of mine to come with me to check out Mr. Popup's house. Before heading over, we confirmed with some of the younger students that Mr. Popup was still active and watching. Some kids who play soccer in the empty lot now said they saw him often. So a couple of nights later, we went to his house. The moment we got there, I wanted to go home immediately. I had this terrible feeling that something bad was going to happen. I didn't want to look like a wuss, so I kept my mouth shut. His house was about 50 years old, one of the classic-looking Japanese ones. The garden was full of overgrown weeds. It looked abandoned. So the 4 of us crept into the garden, and I was furred from the front. The guy in front suddenly stopped. The second in line asked, "What's the matter?" No reply. The guy in front gestured towards something. I looked in that direction, and I saw what had made him silent. We saw Mr. Popup. He was there, in his garden. We could see him from behind. He was floating. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't see his feet, but what he was wearing was tattered and reddish. One of my friends screamed. It felt like he would never stop screaming. Mr. Popup turned his head towards us. His eyes crossed over us and locked with mine. His eyes danced like fire. He glared at us. I couldn't stand it any longer. I ran for it. We all ran for it. We ran back towards our high school. I don't know why we did that. Since that night, we have never returned to the vacant lot. Kids at school still say Mr. Popup is watching them play. There are some theories at school about what he is. Some say he's a ghost. Others say he's an alien. But, of course, there are plenty who say our eyes were just playing tricks on us, and we were making it up. At my school, there's an unused classroom we call the desk graveyard. What that means is that it's basically a storage room with a huge amount of desks in it. There are lots of rumors about the desk graveyard. It's said that sometimes you can hear certain sounds coming from the desk graveyard, even when there isn't anyone in there. Since the desk graveyard was on the first floor, we guessed the noise was coming from the second floor. The library is above it though, and the sounds we would hear from it would be running, rummaging, and thumping. Since students wouldn't be in the library whilst we were in regular class time, we started to wonder just what was going on in the desk graveyard. One time, this kid from my class had something wrong with his desk. It was wobbling or something. He was told by the teacher to go and exchange it. He said that when he got to the desk graveyard, he heard the same sounds we had all heard, but up close. I was tempted to think it was an earthquake or something, but the kid was adamant it wasn't. He quit picking out a new desk and hurried back to class. He came back white as a ghost and convinced something paranormal was going on in that room. It's so weird that no one ever goes in there. Not even the cleaner. Since no one goes in there, I guess it doesn't really need to be cleaned all that often. But once the cleaner was cleaning the corridor in front of it, and he said that he heard a horrible rattling sound coming from in there. He thought maybe it was the wind, but the windows were closed. The cleaner at our school had been there for a very long time. He was actually a former student. I asked him what he knew about the desk graveyard. And he said, even when he was a kid, the same room was used for storing desks and nothing more. And no one was allowed in there without good reason too. He said that there were similar rumors about that room when he was a boy. I don't know the truth of this matter, but what he told me chilled me to the bone and made me never want to go into the desk graveyard alone again. He said that before it was used to store desks, and before it was even a building, there was a pond in its place. When the school was built on these grounds, a decision was made to fill in the pond. It wasn't a big pond, but it was an incredibly deep pond. In days gone by, a young girl lost her life in the murky depths of the pond. Therefore, the kids, who the cleaner went to school with, all blamed the noises and strange goings-on on a ghost. The ghost of the girl who lost her life in the pond. I often wonder aloud what that little girl is trying to communicate, if anything. Are you just trying to make us aware of your existence? And you just want to let us know that you're there? Or are you still wanting to play with some children of your age? Either way, I don't want to go anywhere near the desk graveyard. It makes me nervous. At my school, there's a toilet door that doesn't open. In the boys' toilet on the first floor, the Innermost Toilet stall. The door is sealed tight and doesn't budge at all. Some of my classmates say it's just a converted storage room or something. There are plenty of strange rumors about it though. It's eerie. Apparently, if you knock on the door, someone or something knocks back, even though there should be no one in there. If you ask, is anyone there? Apparently, you'll get a reply. And this is just a couple of the creepy rumors. All the kids at school talk about it. One day my friends and I wanted to see if there was any truth in these rumors, so as the sun set, we decided to head to the toilets on the first floor. There wasn't anything especially different about the toilets on this floor. They were the same layout and design, but there was something about the atmosphere that felt a little different. Perhaps it was our anticipation, but I don't think it was. The Innermost Toilet door, like the rumors said, wouldn't budge. We tried to heave it open, but it seemed like it was sealed shut. We tried going into the adjoining toilet stall and climbing up to get a peek over the top, but that bit above the toilet stall had been boarded up. We came to a dead end. "Well, someone knock then," one of my friends said. Another one of my friends, let's call him A, took on the dare. A approached the toilet stall and knocked. The bathroom fell into an eerie silence. It felt cold in there. For a while we waited for a response, but there wasn't one. We were kind of disappointed. "Try asking if someone's there," one of my friends called out to A. "Is anyone there?" The only sound we heard was the steady drip of the bathroom tap. "Looks like the rumors were fake then," A said while breaking the silence. We all laughed and it eased the tension a little. "Let's go then, guys," A said, and B started whistling some tune or other as we turned to leave. I didn't want to admit the impossible, but it sounded like the door opened. No one wanted to turn around. "I think the door's open," A said. Still, none of us turned around. I was the closest to that stall. I tried to shake my fear off and began to turn to face it. At that time, my friend began to scream and he ran out of the bathroom. A and I ran after him. We caught up to him and he was sat on the stairs with his head in his hands. "What happened? Did you see something?" A asked. "There's something in that stall," he said. "What?" I asked. "Something like an altar for worshipping. It was covered in blood. Dry blood," he said. "Really? In a toilet stall?" "It's true." We all headed back into the bathroom. We crept in side by side. I really didn't want to go back in there, but the other two did. When we got back in there, we found the toilet stall was shut again. Once more, we tried to heave it open, but it wouldn't budge. We went home, very confused. After about a week, my friend, the one who saw the strange altar in the toilet stall, approached me with a problem he'd been having. At night, no matter where I am, whenever I go to the toilet, someone knocks at the door. I asked my family, but they said they're not pranking me. Every night, I don't want to go to the toilet at night anymore. Something's followed me from that stall. It sounded like whatever was happening to him wasn't going to stop either. Anyway, A and I are going to head over to his house tonight, try to see if we hear the knocking too. Hopefully, he's just hearing things, but who knows? Note: there have been no further posts by this author.